Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers.
And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 16, Episode 75. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation, this wild card weekend. Although the Pittsburgh Steelers will wait until Monday night to play their first-round game against the Houston Texans. So, Dave, bit lighter, potentially shorter show today, but still some things to talk about. Dave, how you doing?
All right. Happy Friday. It's Spaghetti Friday in our household here. So that's good. Got to enjoy that exciting college football game last night between Ole Miss and Miami. Got a real good one. Should be a good one tonight with Indiana and Oregon. Looking forward to that. Then looking forward to kind of sitting back on Sunday and Saturday and Sunday and watching the wild card games. And then we'll go into Monday night knowing kind of if the Steelers win, who they will play in potentially the divisional round of the playoffs. So yeah, it's a great time to be alive, especially with all the good football that looks to be on tap this weekend.
All right, Dave, let's dive on into the Pittsburgh Steelers. One point of a relatively minor note, but just to kind of close the loop on Trey Flowers after being waived on Monday to make room for DK Metcalf, whose suspension is officially over. The roster exemption has officially been shed, and so he's officially back on the 53-man roster. Trey Flowers signed back to the practice squad, so he'll be on the P squad this week, go through practice, and barring an elevation, we'll watch the game in street clothes. So just noting that Metcalf suspension, all that stuff, all that haze in the barn, and Flowers back on the practice squad.
Yeah, got that all finalized there, and now we'll fast forward into the rest of the injury report. They obviously started practice a little bit a day later this week with the injury reports and all because of them playing on Monday night, and so that would mean I'm guessing Monday would be the day that the elevation takes place, right? Or if there are any elevations. And looking forward right now, I am thinking maybe Deshaun Jameson might be the only guy. Of course, got a couple of days of practice to go, and hopefully the sheet stays as relatively clean and optimistic as it looked on Thursday, right?
And let's go through that injury report, the team's first release on Thursday, so there'll be Friday and Saturday reports because of the Monday game. But as you said, it's where you want it to be. Just 6 names on the report, only 1 player missing practice, and that was due to illness, not injury. Running back Jaylen Warren's been battling a bug, it feels like, the last couple of weeks, but I assume he's going to be good to go, and having the game not until Monday obviously will help Warren feel better. So Aaron Rodgers, Ben Skoranek full, Christian Kuntz, TJ Watt full. Kim Hayward was limited with a rest day, but that's standard fare there. And again, Warren, the only player to miss. And so from a 53-man roster standpoint, I know that Darnell Washington and Deshaun Elliott are still losses, but from the guys who are on the roster, Pittsburgh is extremely healthy, short list. That's exactly what you want for your postseason run.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking good there. And, Deshaun Elliott posted something on Instagram a couple of days ago that made it look like potentially he might have been hinting towards his practice window getting open. But maybe that tends toward possibility of if the Steelers win and get past this week. I don't know. The fact of the matter is that Thursday has come and gone, and no 21-day windows were open. And obviously, if there's none open today, then none are going to get open this week.
Sure. I know that post certainly threw up antennas for Steelers fans. It said to be continued with a photo of himself in uniform, but I've come to learn that players can be pretty cryptic and vague with their posts, and we can interpret them in incorrect ways. So we'll see. I guess it's not out of the question, but I know that around Thanksgiving, Elliott was talking about getting ready for next year. Maybe if there is a big playoff run, of course, the odds naturally would increase, but I just don't. I don't have any indication that Elliott's close to coming back or anything like that. If he does, fantastic. But until I get any sort of evidence of that beyond an IG post, then I'll assume he's out.
Yeah, he's definitely. Here's the thing: he's not going to be there on the field on Monday night, and that's you got to get past Monday night for any of that to potentially come in play.
From the Houston Texans standpoint, a couple of names on their first report. Titus Howard, one of their starting tackles, did not practice with an ankle, so we'll have to monitor that. And then their cornerback, Kamari Lassiter, is trying to come off a ankle knee injury. He did not practice on Thursday, but he told reporters that he expects and plans to play. And so we'll go with that assumption until otherwise notified. So that'll be a big get if Lassiter comes back to pair him and Stingley in that really strong, young Texan secondary.
Yeah, they've already got a good secondary without him and been playing without him. So that would obviously bolster what they're doing on the back end there. So we'll obviously watch that the next couple of days as we wind down the week here on the injury reports.
Dave, some Steelers news and sort of related to the Steelers and around the NFL. The Steelers have their first coaching request from another team to interview one of the members of their coaching staff for a vacancy, and that's the Tennessee Titans, who have put in a request to interview Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. And we talked about that back in October when the Titans fired their head coach Brian Callahan. Could Smith get a look whenever the cycle began in January, and that's exactly what appears to be happening. Smith, of course, has very close ties with the organization, born in Memphis, worked for Tennessee for almost a decade as an assistant, and then eventually becoming their OC in 2019 and 2020 before being hired by the Atlanta Falcons as their head coach. Smith was speaking with the media yesterday, acknowledged the report, said it basically had just happened before he got out to the media, and said his focus is on Pittsburgh. And so by NFL rule, any interview would be virtual to start with, could not happen until January 14th at the earliest, and so after the wild card game. But Smith now getting a look from Tennessee.
Not overly surprised in the big picture of it. I have still been of the thought, dating back to when we were having some conversations around, I guess, starting around the middle of the season and all. And look, there's there was eight openings right now, I think, head coaches around the league.
Yes.
I think I'll be surprised if Arthur Smith lands in any one of those, to be honest with you. I just think Arthur Smith is a good offensive coordinator. I still kind of question head coach and how good. Now, obviously, if you were to draw the easy links back to Tennessee and him spending his time there and the familiarity the organization has with him, that would seem like the most likeliest landing spot for him. But and look, eight openings is a lot of openings, and you know the obviously the further the Steelers go in this thing, you know, people are going to say, "Hey, what's going on with him?" But he has had the luxury of having a veteran quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. Now, within that, you look around and see what he has done in the short time he's been here, and he has gotten the most out of the quarterbacks that they have had under him with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and obviously now Aaron Rodgers, late stages of his career. I still think that I will be shocked if he lands any one of these 8 spots, but this is probably, on top of that, not going to be the last interview that he gets for a head coach job within this cycle.
Maybe, maybe not. He got, one or two? I think he got 2 last year, Chicago and the Jets, if memory serves. You've already had these teams put in a lot of interviews already, so I don't know if there'll be more, but it seems like teams have been a little more hesitant to request names of teams who are already in the playoffs and getting ready for Wild Card Weekend, so maybe there'll be another surge after Wild Card Weekend. Obviously, teams who are eliminated becomes a whole lot easier logistically to talk to those guys, but all it takes is one team. And as you said, the ties to Tennessee run really deep with ownership. Amy Adams Strunk. I know they're kind of redoing the organizational structure in Tennessee, but still there's a lot of connections there, and Arthur Smith has talked about being selective if he ever took another head coaching job. It's rare to get one. It's even rare to get two. Most guys don't get three, and so you want to make sure that second one is the right place. But I feel like he'd feel like Tennessee's the right place because of the roots that he has to it. So we'll see. We'll keep you updated. Tennessee's cast a wide net in their coaching search. I think they're up to a dozen or so candidates right now, and so he's one of many names that are in this pool. Probably not the favorite, but we'll see what happens there. And just to kind of go back to what you said, I was going to ask you, because I had this debate with some people on Twitter yesterday. How good of a coach is he when it comes to working with quarterbacks? Is he a product of a good talent around them, or do you think he actually does a good job in terms of developing quarterbacks, which is important for Pittsburgh if he stays, and obviously important if he goes somewhere else?
I mean, look, we're not behind the scenes. We don't see the day-to-day operations and not inside the meetings and all like that. I just think you have to take it based on the information that you have, and that's really the results end of it. And uh, he got all he could get out of it. Feels like he got the top end of, or the ceiling, I would say, out of Justin Fields in those limited amount of games to start last year. And then Russell Wilson, for late stages in his career, how much were you going to be able to change the stripes on that tiger even to begin with? So good offensive coordinators as a whole do a good job of matching the personnel and strengths of players to what they like to do and get the most out of them. And I think without a doubt, he was able to do that with specifically Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. I still don't. I wouldn't put Arthur Smith in the quarterback whisperer, Bruce Arians classification. So it's really impossible to look at it more than. And look, you go back to what he did, obviously, with Tannehill, but I
Right.
mean, it didn't hurt to have the offensive line and Derrick Henry back then also. And plus they had some pretty daggum good receivers over there in Tennessee as well too. So I'm not going to sit here and overanalyze it. I think you have to look at the results that have happened in those scenarios and say, yeah, they were good overall.
I think he's got a good track record with quarterbacks. I think that really shouldn't even be debated. If you just look at your favorite stat, adjusted net yards per passing attempt, and just kind of use that as maybe one metric point to evaluate quarterback. I know that is just a stat, but it's one of the more useful ones in just kind of determining how good of a season that you had. As you said, with Tannehill, the year before he came to Arthur Smith in Tennessee, Miami, he had a 5.3 ANYA. In 2019 with Tennessee. His first year was 8.5, led the NFL. His next year with Arthur Smith, 7.9. Year Arthur Smith leaves in 21, Tannehill down to 5.53. You look at Justin Fields, what he did in, granted, half a season last year. Obviously, they had a lot of training wheels on him, but it was 5.9, a career high. Not a great number, but a good number for Justin Fields. With the Jets this year, it was 5.03. You look at Russell Wilson. Now, granted, he barely played with the Giants this year, but last year in Pittsburgh, it was 6.4. This year, it was 5.4. You look at Aaron Rodgers, who I know obviously isn't being developed, but the relationship those two had seems to be really good and healthy, and that's critical. Last year with the Jets, it was 5.9. This year, it was 6.3. So just on that stat alone, every time a quarterback works with Arthur Smith, they get better. Every time they go somewhere else or he goes somewhere else, they seemingly get worse. Now, Atlanta is obviously a mess, and there really was not a lot of quarterback talent there. 1 year of Matt Ryan, you had Mariota, you had Desmond Ridder, Heineke. It's just not a lot to work with there. I'll grant you that. But I think he's got a good track record. I know he doesn't have the reputation of a Kevin O'Connell or somebody like that, as Stefanski, of developing and working with quarterbacks. But if you look at the numbers, they speak for themselves, and he's doing a good job.
I view him as a good offensive coordinator, but not not above average head coach material is where I'm at on him.
What makes you say
Just
the head
from
coach
what
aspect?
we saw in his time, and the way he comes off with the media. And look, once again, we're not behind closed doors, but I'm telling I would say this: if I'm a general manager, if I'm an owner right now, and I'm looking to fill one of these positions around the NFL, and look, once again, I'm on the outside. I'm going on external information and things that I can touch and see. I just don't, he would be a guy that I would seriously consider as an offensive coordinator. I just don't think that I'd consider him as head coach, as prime head coach material.
And I don't want to cape for Arthur Smith. He's got his flaws. I think he's, a competent OC, a floor-raising OC, but he's not the best OC in football. I just say from the standpoint, and I'm of the mindset, big picture, that when it comes to hiring a head coach, it just can't be about go hire a smart offensive mind or a good defensive mind or a quarterback guru. Head coach is CEO. It's so much more than just positional work. That's what coordinators and positional coaches are for. But if I'm Tennessee and I'm saying, who's going to work well with my number one overall pick, Cam Ward? Who's going to develop this guy? Who's going to have a good relationship with this guy, which will aid in development? You look at somebody like Arthur Smith with a track record of the quarterbacks that he's inherited, the guys that he has worked with and developed. And then even this year with Aaron Rodgers, you're not developing Aaron Rodgers. What was the concern to begin this year? Oh, how could Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers coexist? They're going to hate each other by season's end. This thing's going to be a disaster, and it has largely been anything but. Those two guys have worked well together, and sometimes that means for Arthur Smith letting go of the reins, letting Aaron Rodgers do his thing, but that's trust in your guy. That's part of the job and part of your assignment and role as a coach. And so I think the relationship aspect, he worked well with Justin Fields last year. I think that it speaks well to him if you're an outside team thinking about how will this guy work with my young quarterback.
Well, and you got to wear a lot of hats when you're a head coach as well, too. And I think Arthur Smith's one of those guys that, to me, is is better wearing fewer hats. Because look, you got to be team psychologist. I mean, you got to be there. There's so many factors that go into being a head coach that go above and beyond being a coordinator per se. And that's why sometimes you see a lot of these great coordinators not be able to handle, they're fine as coordinators, but you get them in a head coach role and they're just, they don't pass the muster. Mike McDonald, who just got fired from the Dolphins yesterday, brilliant mind. But when you look at Mike McDonald, when you watch his press conferences and all, it does make you wonder how good of a head coach is he? There's nothing wrong with that because there's a lot of great offensive coordinators that been around the league that just aren't head coach. You'll never make it as head coach material.
Yeah, it's the Peter principle of you fall up until a point where you can't do the job. You get promoted over your skis and then you kind of fall back down. So that's pretty common in management type situations. So again, it's not to say that Arthur Smith would be a great head coach if he was hired. Who knows how it would go? There'd be so many variables at play. But I think he gets reputation as somebody who doesn't work well with quarterbacks. He's a run-minded guy, and of course he is. He's certainly a former offensive lineman. He's as run-heavy and run-oriented as basically any OC in football, maybe Greg Roman as well. But I think he's done a better job with quarterbacks if you just pan out and kind of look at the numbers and look at the names he's worked with and how they've done with him versus without him. I see a pretty clear pattern and difference in a positive way.
All right, let's move the conversation past whether or not he can be, a successful head coach in the NFL. Let's take it to the point. Let's say he does leave for whatever head coach job and gets hired away from the Steelers. What does this do immediately, per se, to if Aaron Rodgers decides that he would like to play one more year? How would that potentially influence the decision of Aaron Rodgers?
I don't know if it would dramatically. Obviously, he would be interested in who the Steelers OC, the next hire, would be. And so he probably wouldn't make a decision before then, just so he has all the information before any decision. But really, it's about Mike Tomlin. That's why Aaron Rodgers came to Pittsburgh. He's very much on record about that. Said that a dozen times in the after signing with Pittsburgh in June. So it's really if Tomlin stays, then that's incentive enough largely for Rodgers to stay.
All right.
Now, who could the next OC be? I know I'm getting
Oh,
way
Lord.
over our skis here. I have not given that much thought. We won't talk about it much, but could you promote quarterbacks coach Tom Arth, who, of course, has a very good relationship with Aaron Rodgers? They were teammates in Green Bay for a brief time. Rodgers was happy to reunite with him in Pittsburgh this year. I think Arth's done a good job. He really helped work with Fields last year, improve his footwork. So could that be an internal thing? Pittsburgh certainly loves their internal promotions. So that's one name to just think about.
Well, if Aaron Rodgers decided to come back, to me, that would be the most logical way to do. And everybody's screaming and driving off the road right now, saying, "No, no, no! That's what's gotten us in problems in the past." And I certainly understand that. But if you're talking about at least trying to get one more year out of Aaron Rodgers, I think that would be the most logical way. People were saying, people are already leaking Mike McDonald and I mean,
McDaniel.
McDaniel and a few others around the league. Thinking the Steelers should go out. Once again, we're going hypothetical here. Personally, I don't think Arthur Smith's going anywhere. But if he were, and if Aaron Rodgers said, you know what, let's run it back one more time, it would make the most sense to stay within the building, as much as that's going to irritate most of our listeners.
Assuming that Arthur Smith does not get a head coaching job, but I know we'll talk about this more after the season ends, whenever that may be. But do you expect Arthur Smith to return as OC in 2026?
Yes.
I do as well. Terrell Austin could be a different story. We'll see. We'll talk about that some other show. But I expect Smith to be back, final year of his contract, should he not take a head coaching job.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Dave, speaking of the coordinators, we'll get into that. Obviously, lighter show today, no beat writer on today, and no in-depth report on Houston. We'll do maybe some light work and overview of the Texans, but let's stick with Arthur Smith, who spoke with the media yesterday, and beyond his comments about Tennessee, didn't have a whole lot else to say there. Talked about, I'm not even sure exactly what the other big picture comment was, to be honest with you, getting DK Metcalf back and the obvious excitement for that, but he talked about the gritty group that subbed in for him and the group that played well in that kind of tit-for-tat fourth quarter with guys stepping up, be it Adam Thielen or Calvin Austin or MBS and Arthur Smith, who kind of loves the gritty grunt work again, former offensive lineman, run game background. He appreciated those guys stepping up.
Yeah, and that was a real gritty group. What they got done, in the absence of DK Metcalf, and as we talked the other day, man, you much rather have DK back in this thing than not having him at this point. Man, the first 3 or 4 questions he was asked were just awful, and media not being up on kind of play calls and all like that. So, other than the return of DK Metcalf and adding him back to the group and how that elevates elevates the offense, he says, look, I mean, every week is a different story, but obviously getting DK back, it's like anytime you get one of your best players back, it certainly helps. That was the thinking going in. Again, it goes back to those guys. You look at Aaron Rodgers, said it, and it's true. We kind of embrace that. We got a bunch of cast-offs or guys that have been has-beens, and we embrace that, and these guys fight. And as you said, it's a gritty group, and cool to see the ball go 9 different guys. Guys have stepped up: Scotty, Adam, Quez, Calvin, Fryermuth, all those guys. Johnny Smith, he just he gave the Russell Wilson run down everybody in the room type situation there. But look, I think it's a testament to what this team's been able to do, kind of specifically, I guess, since the Buffalo loss, and the Cleveland game obviously didn't go their way, but they've been able to hold the fort down per se, specifically these last 2 games, and it's not going to hurt one bit to get DK Metcalf back out there with this group. And look, you're another week deeper into Adam Thielen being in with this team. Marquez Valdez-Scantling obviously around another week at this point. The cool thing is that you won. You were able to spread the ball around like they did against Baltimore without DK. You were able to have some key plays. You were able to have a couple of answer drives late in the game, and just adding DK Metcalf back in the mix is not going to hurt one bit. And he's like, this is a guy that wants to really atone, you have to feel, at this point, in DK Metcalf, and he's going to be out there wanting to make some big plays for this team against a very, very good defense on Monday night against the Texans.
And while Metcalf obviously is not a cast-off, he's a pretty gritty guy himself. He'll do the dirty work, as evidenced by his blocking, getting a gunner rep this year. He has the same mindset, I think, as the other guys. But it has been fun to kind of watch this group embrace that cast-off mentality, the island of misfit toys, as I like to call it, and these guys just stepping up and making plays. You'd probably rather prefer a greater collection of talent over the cast-off, chip on their shoulder kind of group, but this group has been motivated, I think, by that and have responded.
Look, they're in a lot better spot, it feels, right now with their wide receiver group than what they were to start the season, and especially being as how Roman Wilson has never really gotten highly involved in this thing. You got to, give how many games has Calvin missed? Just a one, or he missed two, didn't he?
No, he had the injury in the Dublin game. He missed the game coming out of the bye at the least,
right.
So he missed one or two then. So he's missed a couple this year.
Right. So, and you got guys around Aaron Aaron, have guys that have a lot of playing time in the NFL, and I think the good thing is that over the last couple of weeks, they've been able to form better relationships and hopefully get on the same page. And who was it? Mike Tomlin the other day was asked about DK not being there, and that to some degree, now that you're in the playoffs and you've gotten past that, probably has some advantages because the ball is going different directions other than DK Metcalf in practices too. So we'll see how it all pays off on Monday night, because they're going to have to throw the ball effectively at some point in this game against a very good pass rush and against a very good secondary on top of it. So the proof will be in the pudding what all these ads and getting DK back will mean to this team come Monday night.
Yeah, well said. And I think Mike Tomlin made the point that you referenced, that without Metcalf, it forced you to be more creative and have to do some different things. And obviously, there were growing pains in that. Week 17, the mess that game was, but you got a whole lot better in Week 18. So now you're kind of a more creative group. You had to go through a different lens and perspective to create offense, and you get your star receiver back in DK Metcalf. Hopefully, that will just serve Pittsburgh well from the necessity standpoint of having to win without him, and then you infuse Metcalf back into that may take your game, in theory, on paper, and hopefully to new heights.
And I wish they broadcast these things or drop the videos of them instead of trying to read off a transcript.
Oh, them speaking? Yeah. Is there something you wish you had verbal context stuff?
I like seeing the context. Like this morning, I went back through Aaron Rodgers, Adam Thielen, Dylan Cook. And you look around the league, and heck, I'm as in tune with Twitter as the next guy, and all these teams around the league seem to make their coordinators, not only available but available to the fan base as well too. And I just wish we had that.
Well, you'll get your gruel and you'll like it, Dave, I guess is all that you can do. But you're right, the nonverbal cues can be really important in terms of how somebody answers a question as opposed to just the words on a piece of paper. But that's what we got. Any other words on a piece of paper from Arthur Smith, Dave?
Not really.
Yeah, that was basically it. The comment about Tennessee. And just to read off the quote about Tennessee, he says, quote, "Anything like that is a distraction, so all my focus is on our guys, these guys, and anything I take away from that is not doing my job. So all I care about is the Steelers and our players," end quote. And again, any interview with Tennessee will be virtual over Zoom initially and couldn't happen until January 14th at the earliest. And so Smith's focus will really truly be on Houston, and probably really is not thinking much about Tennessee right now.
Right. I would agree. Hopefully he's not.
Yeah.
He even said it would be a distraction to comment much on it, so.
Right. Although he did comment a little bit on it. Terrell Austin speaking, no head coach interviews for Terrell Austin, but he is getting ready for the Houston Texans. And there wasn't much here, but I think he's been listening to the podcast, Dave, because he talked about Keanu Benton, and he basically echoed what you said about Benton's game and what steps he's taken. He talked about the consistency. He says, quote, "We used to see Flash. He would flash and make some really good plays, and then you wouldn't feel him for a while. I think the thing that's more consistent with him now is he's flashing more plays and making more plays. That's really the thing," end quote. Which really, I think, mirrors what you talked about on our last show, Dave.
Look, neither you or I are a heart scientist or a rocket surgeon, when it comes to this. But that's why we always scream to the guys, watch the tape. Just watch the tape. You watch the tape long enough, and you do this week in and week out, things should stick out to you. And I think, as I said the other day, and would we have liked him to finish that sack, him or Highsmith again, the other night against Baltimore? Absolutely. Would that have made that game, especially if Benton had gotten that sack, that much more sweeter for it? Absolutely, it would. But the thing in going through, and look, this is another byproduct of me getting the tape a lot earlier in the week, ahead of us having that Wednesday podcast, was the fact that it really felt that you just saw more consistency throughout the game. And I think as the season has gone on, because we were talking like the first 4 or 5 games of the season too, with guys like Porter and Benton and a handful of others, thinking that it's been good. You want to see more consistency. And Benton has up until this point been a guy that he's had some good snaps. A lot of them seem to come early in the game, and then he kind of loses his steam as the game goes on. And if anything, one player in particular, when it looked throughout this Baltimore Ravens game tape, it was that Benton stayed consistently good throughout the game. And other than him not finishing that last sack opportunity on Lamar Jackson, I thought it was. I still think that might have been one of his better games of his career.
Yeah, it's certainly up there. I don't know if it's the best, but it's on the podium, I think, worst case, and maybe taking that gold medal. And you're right. This is not just about the Ravens game. This has been about Benton's season in totality. It has been more consistent. It has been better. He's been working to his left on his pass rush moves, which he never had in the past. He's been working on some different moves too, and had a little more success than just the club over, although that's still, of course, his go-to move. That's one of the best on the team. But you're seeing the consistency across the board, and then you would expect that for still a pretty young guy finding his way. But you're seeing it now, and it's badly needed.
Look, we went into this season, there were some rumblings about, does he need to go out to end, and the drafting of Y.A. Black, is this kind of a foreshadowing of maybe him going to the middle? But I think he has rebounded to give you more confidence moving forward past this season that Keanu Benton can be that guy in the middle.
Will there be Keanu Benton in the middle next year with a new contract? And if so, what could that contract look like? What's a good gauge in comparison for Benton?
Oh, let's look at the market real quick then.
I feel like it's a children's show. Let's go to Dave's corner.
By the way, the interesting thing with him, starting to do research on proven performance escalators and guys that'll be due for raises this offseason thanks to the proven performance escalator. He's not in that, and he gets caught up in that stipulation of, because he was a second round pick, and the snap qualifications for him is in the 60% realm. He did not qualify for that. So Keanu Benton won't get a proven performance escalator raise, while guys like Joey Porter Jr.
Wait, why won't he get it? What is he missing?
He did not. Hold on, I'll tell you specifically here.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that he would not qualify, because he should, obviously, just based on the quality of his play and his snap count, which that program is there to help kind of boost these rookies that are on rookie deals and playing well. And maybe don't get their extensions right away, but you put some money in their pocket to kind of reward them for playing a lot and playing well.
Right, and it has nothing to do here's the thing, the proven performance escalator has nothing to do with how you play on the field.
Oh, is it just purely snap count?
It's snap and well, there is the final bump that's Pro Bowl and all like
Okay.
that.
Right.
But when you're looking at level one, for there's three levels to the proven performance escalator aspect here as far as the levels that you can earn here. Level one is if a player participates in a certain percentage of team's offensive or defensive snaps in two of his first three seasons, or averages that percentage on offense or defense for the entire of his first 3 years in the league. Now, however, for second round picks, the average needs to be 60%. Whereas if you were drafted in the third to seventh round, the average needs to be 35%. So he got hung up. If he had been drafted one round later, he would have fallen into the 35% category. But he did not average or did not have two of his first three seasons result in him playing 60% or more of the snaps, and obviously, and he did not have the average of that over his first 3 years. So that's why he will not. And then level two, if a player participates in at least 55% of the team's offensive or defensive snaps in all of his first three seasons. So he could have qualified for that, but he didn't because he did not have 55% of the snaps in all three. And then level three would have had it been an original ballot Pro Bowl selection. So
Okay. I mean, you do get rewarded for playing well if you make the Pro Bowl from that standpoint, what I kind
sure.
of said. But good point taken. That's kind of the life of Benton being that nose tackle that's not quite the every down guy.
And I'll go ahead and bury the lead and give away the fruit here. Joey Porter Jr., Darnell Washington, and Nick Herbig all qualified for proven performance escalators. Washington and Nick Herbig for the level one, and Joey Porter Jr. Qualified for the level two.
Okay. Yeah. So there's your teaser there. But back to Benton and the contract. I'm looking at the list, and of course you can weigh in. I'm doing this off the rip here. How about comparing him to a guy that just got paid? Baltimore's Travis Jones, who got a $40.5 million 3-year contract, 13.5 average yearly value. That's probably a good starting point for Benton's camp.
Let me look real quick back at the
Jones
list
broke out
here.
this year the way that Benton broke out this year. Similar ages. I think Jones a little bit older, but pretty close. That's probably a comparable.
What was Travis Jones?
I'm seeing 3 years, 40.5 million. He
Okay.
just signed it last month.
13.5 average yearly value. And then going up from there, what does that put him? Travis Jones is around or what, 25 or so, 25th ranked?
Yeah, it's not terribly high. It's maybe in the 20s now. Of course, you got to be careful with the Cam Hayward
Right.
situation. What he's getting paid, you're not going above Cam, and Cam's not extremely high paid, still probably underpaid for what he's offering this team. But maybe that sweet spot above Travis Jones, but below Cam Hayward.
Yeah, I'm thinking around 14 million. Sounds fair.
Yeah, it's kind of my initial thought. So not something the team will probably be rushing out to do come March, more of a summer type consideration, but just something to think about.
Yeah, he is a guy I would think at this point you're looking at later in training camp or at least once training camp gets open. But I think that's a good starting point, 14 million. Yeah, I think you had a nice pull there on Travis Jones with especially because that's a recent thing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're always trying to top the guy that just got paid. So well-deserved for Ben, but we'll talk about that more in the offseason. Anything else from Terlawson to kind of get us out of that rabbit hole, going back to TA? Talked about TJ Watt and knocking the rust off and expects Watt to be even better. Talked about that, even for a guy like Watt, you kind of got to get your timing back down, and it takes a little bit of time to do that. And so he expects even more come Monday night.
Yeah, look, and we stated the other day, I thought one of the prime things to come out of the press conference post game that TJ Watt had to say is that, man, he said his legs felt extremely fresh, and might we be looking at, especially come after Monday night, might we kind of be looking at this whole thing as a little bit of a blessing overall with him? Because what are some of the things that TJ Watt has talked about late in seasons in the past? Man, I was beat up, my ribs, all like this, and to have a couple of weeks off like he did and be fresh, and then obviously come back and get his timing back, and so some of the things that Austin mentioned about what do you have to say about the get-offs and the timing and the punches and all like that, having one game underneath his belt. Look, for this team to win this game against the Texans on Monday night, we're going to have to see guys like Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig and TJ Watt make some contributions, I think, on defense.
Sure. I mean, that you always expect that to win. That you always need your engines and your defense to make those kinds of plays. That's why they're highly paid. It's why they're drafted. It's why Pittsburgh prioritizes them so much. And so, yeah, in a very narrow sense, there is a silver lining to Watt missing those 3 games with that freak lung injury, because it did keep his legs fresh and kept the rest of his body healthy. Although I'm sure if Watt could do it over, he would trade some sore legs for a non-punctured and collapsed lung.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have talked about before about how often he's chipped and the impact that probably takes on him as the season goes along. So yeah, look, he ought to be he's another one should be chomping at a bit to get after it with one game underneath his belt now.
And I'm ruining the joke by explaining the joke, but some will take me literally when I say this. But you know how Nick Herbig has said he follows TJ Watt around, wants to do everything that he does to be the player that TJ. Does that mean Herbig now has to collapse his own lungs and start poking himself with needles?
Don't go there.
Just do whatever. I'm doing everything TJ does.
No. Let's not go there.
All right, I'm just checking. All right, anything else from Terrell Austin, Dave?
No, I think once again it'd be nice to see these full press conferences to have a little bit of a context here. But
did talk about 2 other just quick things. Faster starts. The last 2 games have been slow starts, allowing 10 points in the first quarter to Cleveland, a really ugly start. Then the defense tightened up 10-0 against Baltimore too. And so, especially we talk about the offense needing some faster starts and getting to breaking that streak of 7 or 8+ points in the first quarter. The defense like that to be a little faster, a little stronger as well.
Look, both sides of the football, you'd like to see them start faster, especially in this game Monday night against the Texans. Let's go back to the coin toss. We saw Mike Tomlin choose to take the football after winning the toss against Baltimore. There, what are you doing in this game against the Texans? If you win the toss,
I win it. I think I'm going to kick. I think Pittsburgh has done a better job double dipping. We talked about them being a great third quarter team. I think starting the game off with the ball in the third quarter is the way to go.
And if the Texans win the toss, what are they going to do?
What should they do? I have no idea. They probably put their offense out there because, I really don't know. They got strength, really good defense too.
I think I want to throw my defense out there if I'm them.
Yeah, that's probably it. Again, knowing how well Pittsburgh has been in the third quarter, how little time teams have had the ball in the third quarter. I think if you're Houston, you probably want the ball to start the second half. So I'm with you. I think they should play defense. I think both teams will want to play defense to start this game.
I think they should. Yes, I agree.
But only one team can. And then also talked about Austin did Joey Porter Jr. and the potential matchup on Nico Collins, the Texans' top flight receiver. Pittsburgh is not. Well, I guess St. Brown, but it's been a little bit seeing a body type like Nico Collins. You face A. Flowers. The Browns really don't have a guy. Judy, but he's a smaller guy. Who was the last kind of real big, not power forward-ish type receiver that Pittsburgh has had to go against? It's been a minute. I guess, was it the last Bengals game against T. Higgins?
Yeah, I think you might be right.
A little bit of Keon Coleman, I guess, against Buffalo, but
did he play it? He suited up for that, didn't he?
He scored on him. I think it was his first game back off that.
That's right.
Team suspension. But I mean, Keon Coleman is not Nico Collins. The same body type, but not the same dude.
Anybody on the Bears qualify?
I mean, there's talent, but just not the same body type. But Dunze and Burden and DJ Moore, they're just different styles. And so it's kind of the first time you've probably seen a guy of Collins' build and caliber since Higgins back in whatever that was, week 11.
Mm-hmm. So we expect Porter to travel some then.
Well, Austin talked about that and said that there'll be times where Porter matches up on Collins, which is natural. But it's interesting because Porter's barely covered receivers the last 2 weeks. And I just say that to say that in third downs, money situations, he's been on tight ends. He was on Fannin against Cleveland because he was their top target. Now, granted, Fannin got hurt after his touchdown and didn't play the rest of the way. And then he had a lot of Porter on Mark Andrews on those key third downs. And so the Texans have a good volume tight end in Dalton Schultz, and Austin spoke about him and his versatility and his route tree. And so in third down situations, will it be Porter on Collins? Will it be Porter on Schultz? I would think it's going to be more Collins in this one, but I've seen Porter do a lot of work on tight ends these last couple of weeks, and I want to see how Pittsburgh balances that kind of divisional labor in this game.
Look, the safety play, and you had a post about this the other day, when it comes to the Steelers secondary for this game, the safety play's got to be much better than it was against Baltimore.
Yeah, and I think it can be. I mean, Ramsey had a really bad game. I think Ramsey can certainly bounce back. I'm not abandoning confidence in him. Duggar's a different story, but certainly no matter who or what or why, the play must be better. And I think Tomlin would say, because there'll be less emphasis and focus on the run game and there is not the quarterback mobility threat, we're not packing the box in the same way, not kind of selling out to stop the quarterback leg element. And there's no back like Derrick Henry in Houston's roster that will hopefully allow for some stronger and better coverage.
Yep. Did you watch the Aaron Rodgers video?
I watch? I read it at first. I've seen clips that were floating around. I don't think I watched the whole thing through, but I've seen probably half the interview just based off the clips.
He is as cool, calm, and collective as you would expect him to be at this time of year. I really enjoyed that one, obviously talking about the team. This is another good point that I think you reemphasized on Twitter yesterday. Regardless of what happens Monday night, or assuming or hoping that this team makes it deeper into the playoffs, and let's say they ultimately get eliminated before the Super Bowl, there are going to be a lot of people coming out on this team in favor of Mike Tomlin.
Starting with Aaron Rodgers, who again sung his praises, chided the media. He talked about Rodgers did whenever the Steelers were 6-6. He said, "You guys are probably publicly or privately saying, oh, Mike T is going to get axed," and everyone's trying to nitpick and needle him, and people can disagree. There's certainly, I think, valid critiques against Tomlin and where this team was at earlier this season, the lack of a playoff win and all that jazz. But Rodgers certainly has full faith and support in Mike Tomlin. I think the rest of the team will reflect that whenever the season comes to an end. They did, of course, last year, and I made that point partially in contrast to Baltimore, where at least publicly you didn't get that sentiment after their loss to Pittsburgh, not from Lamar, which made a lot of headlines, and I didn't hear that from a lot of other players. Doesn't mean they didn't like Harbaugh. Reportedly, after he was fired, a lot of players had emotional moments behind the scenes with him, but I think you'll have a contrast from Baltimore, which really didn't talk about that too much and kind of demurred, versus Pittsburgh, because it's going to get asked about a million times after the season ends about Tomlin, your feelings, his future, all that kind of stuff, but you're going to hear full support from that locker room.
Alex, put some sort of value on what it means for this team to have Aaron Rodgers going into this game.
It's almost hard to, because it's invaluable. It's the intangible aspect of it. And you're right, that leadership, the calm confidence that he displays and talks about, hey, it's the hottest team right now. We've won 4 of our last 5. I like our chances. But to your point, he's been basically the same dude every week. I think in particular, what struck me the most about Rodgers was not after the wins, but after the losses. The Buffalo game, the Browns game, Rodgers was not screaming, yelling, going off. I mean, he was cool, calm, collected, not even doing the whole relax bit that he did in Green Bay. He was asked about that specifically, I think, after the Bills game, and said, I don't have to send that message. These guys got it. We're good. After the Browns game, what did he say? We're good. We're going to go against Baltimore. We're going to beat them. We're going to the playoffs. Like, it's just cool, calm, steady leadership. And I'd always think back to that saying of, and I'm butchering it to some degree, a captain of a ship, anyone can manage that through calm seas. The mark of a good captain is through those rough waters. And through those rough waters, I think Rodgers has shined brightest in his play, but also in his leadership.
I thought Adam Thielen, he gave an interview yesterday too. Was asked a lot of questions about Aaron. He just and obviously he knew Aaron from afar and played golf with him and had a relationship with him and all like that. But this is obviously his first time in the huddle and all. And I think he was asked something along the lines of, what has kind of stuck out about playing with Aaron, and he just said how calm he is in the huddle, and even when they're behind, like on the final, he says he calls the play in the huddle very slow and deliberate and just exudes a lot of confidence that they're going to go down and score. And I think that resonates through that huddle. Look, you heard even Dylan Cook say something along the lines because of 8, he was asked about, going up against a good pass rush. And he says, look, 8 really doesn't expect us to have to hold those blocks too long, even though that's the goal. He gets the ball out quick and all. So it's impossible to put how much does this mean stamp on having a guy like Aaron Rodgers for this game, let's say specifically here, but it cannot be denied the fact that he's played in all these big games like this, and it's just one more for him, and that to some degree, especially at home, and what most of us feel is going to be a close game in this one, to have a guy like that in the huddle and under center. So it's just an aspect of this game that really has to be taken into consideration. Much rather have him than not than have a younger guy. And look, I don't want to take anything away from C.J. Stroud, because he's obviously has played in playoff games to this point and has played reasonably well. But you'd much rather have a guy with Aaron Rodgers' experience back there, especially if you're going to be the underdog in this game.
And he can draw on those experiences, and that's what makes him cool, calm, and collected. It's just from your past. You talk about 2010 in their Super Bowl run. They were not world beaters to end that season or that last month. They had a bad loss to Detroit. They lost back-to-back games. They were fighting for their wild card lives. They won their last 2. They got hot. They made the playoffs, and they went on to run and, of course, beat Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. So, Rodgers can sit there and draw those parallels between a Pittsburgh team that had a bad loss to Cleveland, got hot late in the year, big finale victory, and punched their ticket and went from there. So that's certainly something that you can compare. And I think also a point about Rodgers in general, and you kind of jogged my memory when you mentioned Thielen. Thielen, so whenever he got claimed off waivers by Pittsburgh, he'd never studied so hard in his life, and he's a 13-year veteran. And I think there's just a feeling when a player knows, oh man, I'm playing with Aaron Rodgers. I better step my game up. I better know every check and every signal and make sure that I'm on my P's and Q's, because that's what Rodgers demands, and I don't want to let that guy down. It's very similar to when Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay, and I know he is persona non grata on Pittsburgh podcast, but whenever he went to Tampa Bay, that tone of that organization changed. Everyone got a little bit tighter and said, okay, it's Tom Brady. I better make sure I know what I'm doing, because it's Tom Brady and he knows what he's doing, and I can't be the guy that screws this thing up. Everyone kind of buttons up a little bit more. I think you have that feeling with Rodgers of, I don't want to screw it up because this is Aaron Rodgers, and I can't be the guy that screws up Aaron Rodgers.
Agreed, and I'm trying to pump myself up even more for this game by going back and I'm going to ask you another question. How much, last year the Jets played the Texans, right? And the Jets won that game. How much value, even though the roster's changed some, how much value is there in the aspect of Aaron Rodgers having played that defense last season?
Was Matt Burke on staff last year for Houston, their DC?
Do not know.
Because he's doing the play calling. I know it's D'Amico Ryans gets talked about a lot, but Ryans passed the play calling over.
2023 is when he became DC.
And I'm going to get bogged down in the response there, but I just wanted to double check that. Short answer, yes, I think there is value in that. Obviously, you can lean on Rodgers, and I think it's even more important because Tomlin has talked about this. Tomlin was on the Rich Eisen podcast. We should talk about that too, and his
Oh, yeah.
comments there. But he talked about that Houston's kind of a less familiar opponent, in part because Pittsburgh did not play Houston this year. But even Tomlin said kind of their cross opponents, they didn't have a lot of commonalities in terms of teams where they both played the same team to kind of see approaches and just kind of learn about them. So when you have less information than you maybe otherwise, if you played Buffalo again, you played the Chargers again, you guys know them pretty well, Houston less. So when you have Rodgers that played Houston last year, he played them more recently than anyone, Mike Tomlin has. So yeah, I think it's an extra benefit to try to accelerate that learning curve about how Houston operates, their strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, all the like.
And Rodgers had I don't know if you've gone back and watched any of that game. I poked through a couple of the highlights from that game of Jets versus Houston. That had that fantastic catch by Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson scored twice in that game and made some really fine catches in that game. And I think the other one was a touchdown. Who was the other touchdown? In that one, I'm trying to remember off the top of my. Devontae Adams got free over the top in one of those as well too. There, so it wasn't so. What I'm getting at here is it wasn't so much. Now, look, you have to put the ball where your guy can catch it, but the guys elevated. Or I guess what I'm getting at is the guys elevated their play and made some phenomenal catches in that game. And Aaron obviously got to give him a chance to make those plays, but that was just something that stuck out when going through the highlights in that game, and it just got me thinking. Well, and one of the big things, overarching things that I think that we're going to talk about on Monday when previewing this game, and it kind of goes back to what Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday, is they're not. The Texans, specifically on a defensive side of football, Mike Tomlin's referred to it as not trying to split the atom here. And there's obviously some charts and some good metrics floating around here. They are who they are, at least they have been who they are on defense. They're not all that exotic. They just say, here's our 11 or 12 different guys that we rotate through. See if you can stop it. And we'll have to go back and look at maybe some of those same charts or metrics from last year of how static maybe they had been on defense and all. But the more static that they are against a guy like Aaron Rodgers, you'd have to think that plays into Aaron Rodgers' favor of not having to diagnose and his guys not having to make side adjustments and all like that. So to some degree, I guess to summarize here, the fact that Aaron Rodgers played this defense, even though some of the personnel changes, leans to the advantage of the Steelers offensively.
Like you always say, it doesn't hurt to have that experience in your back pocket, especially again when everyone else is kind of generally less familiar with the Houston Texans. All right. Anything else from the coordinators or Aaron Rodgers, Dave?
No. Let's go to some of the things that Mike Tomlin had to say on Eisen.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by the interview. I didn't think it would happen this time of year, but Mike Tomlin and Eisen are pretty tight, and Pittsburgh had the day off Wednesday, and so there's about a 17-minute or so interview with Rich Eisen that took place earlier this week, and we'll start with Eisen kind of got this question. It's always that famous kind of last question that you ask when it's kind of a touchy subject about Tomlin's love of coaching and a little bit about his future and the rumors about television that continue to run rampant about will Tomlin jump to TV after the season ends. And Eisen asked Tomlin about that, and Tomlin said, quote, "I don't participate in any of that. I can't allow myself to. I'm not really even privy to the specifics of what you're talking about. I just realize it's a component of what I do and what we do. You better learn to live with it or at least endure it," end quote. Separately, he talked about blocking out the outside noise. He doesn't focus on that too much, but he will get texts from friends and family that will say, "How you doing, coach?" And that kind of tells him that the outside noise must be getting pretty intense. And so Tomlin was later, or I think right after that, asked about, does he love coaching? And he says he loves coaching, all that kind of stuff. Didn't outright deny the idea of TV, didn't sit there and say, "I'm not doing it, that's never going to happen." But his comments did not exactly fan the flames of this is a guy ready to go jump to broadcasting.
But he did use a specific word in there. He said, "I'm institutionalized,"
Right. I gotta
And
have it, he says.
yeah, and then you go back to what we said the other day, and it's amazing how even a guy like Rich Eisen, from his very own interview back in June or July of 2023, you know, Mike Tomlin's basically said, "I have no interest in doing any of that." We're talking about TV and all. Now, can people change and can offers come up? And I just, for the life of me, I just can't see Tomlin, especially at this portion of his career, and let's just say something happens that he maybe decides to step away, or the team decides to fire him or whatever. I can't see Mike Tomlin saying, you know what, I'm going to go 2026, and I'm going to be part of broadcast and being in the booth or being in the studio. I just can't see it right now.
I guess in a world where Pittsburgh fired him, maybe if he didn't love the job offers out there or kind of had a chance not on his own accord to reset, just as something to do and kind of stay close to the game. But I just have a hard time believing he'll voluntarily make the jump. And that's basically the scenario in which it would have to happen, because I don't see Tomlin getting fired. Tony Dungy was talking with Dan Patrick and talked about, he spoke with Art Rooney, had a half-hour meeting with him, and had zero sense at all that Tomlin was in trouble, that Tomlin would be fired, was on the chopping block. Even if Pittsburgh had lost that game, Dungy says he's confident that Tomlin would have stayed, or at least not been fired. I know fans won't like hearing that, but that's just
Right.
kind of the sentiment that's coming out of that locker room and that building right now. So you never know what's in a man's heart. And Tomlin's famously talks about he's all in until he's all out. Like, he's very much in one of those two camps. And so things could change quickly, I suppose. But I've just not seen any indication from any reporting, because it all has been couched in speculation and maybe, who knows. And also Tomlin himself, to a man, his DNA, his words, that tells me this is a guy looking to jump ship.
I mean, when you think about it, over the course of the next 3 years, can you envision a Senior Bowl with Mike Tomlin not right out there, right in the damn middle of it? And and him using the word institutionalized and all like that. This guy still, I think, loves it so damn much, all aspects of it. And
And the more he wins and the closer he gets back to a Super Bowl, the more that love is going to be reignited.
right. And I just, and look, I, I've been wrong about projections and prognostications and predictions and all like that, but I can't see him. If he's out for whatever reason of Pittsburgh after this season, I can't see him in a booth or any doing any TV or anything along those lines.
I will still maintain my position I've held and talked about really since midseason, is that I think if you're talking about a clean break point, next year is the year to talk about, not this year. Tomlin will be 20 years in. He'll have owned the franchise record outright for wins. He's going to surpass Chuck Noll next year. It'll be Cam Hayward's last year in all likelihood. We'll see, but probably. Aaron Rodgers, if he returns, it'll definitely be his last year. Like that's the kind of clean. I've done everything that I can do. I've set every record that I can set. I brought a Lombardi to the team. That I could see as a more natural break point. Right now, it just feels like it's not the right time.
I agree.
Tomlin also asked about John Harbaugh and his firing and reacting to that. And I would say not so subtly kind of panned the Ravens for canning John Harbaugh. He says, quote, let me try to find the right quote. Unfortunately, I just think it's a component of today's sport culture. And so there's been many examples of that, and it's unfortunate, but I'm sure that he is going to move on. And if he chooses to coach again, I'm sure he will. And I'm sure he'll be very successful in doing so. So, yeah, I don't know if that's an accurate take. I mean, Harbaugh was on the job for 18 years. This is not exactly a knee-jerk reaction by a coaching staff, but coaching's a fraternity, and I think Tomlin was very much defending Harbaugh there.
I mean, and he is right to some degree, too, with, look, I mean, it's always, you go back to the papers, and if we dug far enough, there's always going to be, but social media makes it even that much more vocal and in your face nowadays, and the way the instantaneous hot take of today's media is and all. I guess what I'm getting at is Tomlin might be one of the last ones for a long, long time where we see a coach past even a past a decade. I mean,
Yeah,
you got a handful of we ran down the coaches the other day of McDermott and who was it? McDermott,
Shanahan,
and
McVay.
McVay. You have three of them at the 9 stage right now, but I mean, I suppose a decade's obviously a lot less than 18, 19 years, but have we reached the, even throughout the, everybody wants to be the Tom Landry, Don Shula. Well, Mike Tomlin is the closest thing to that. Him and Andy Reid at this point. Will we ever see that again? Whenever the Mike Tomlin's, and I'm talking about Pittsburgh too. Pittsburgh has this long-standing tradition of sticking with coaches for a long time. The next guy that whoever it is that follows Tomlin, what are the chances of that guy being around beyond 10 years?
Who knows? I'm sure we would have said the same about, will Cowher be around as long as Knoll, and will Tomlin be around as long as Cowher and Knoll? And here we are. I think Tomlin's overall point is correct. There has been a lack of patience. You've seen coaches get fired so quickly. You don't have the same let it play out the way that you had, probably 20 years ago or when Tomlin first began coaching. But I don't know if that applies to Baltimore for a guy that, again, was on the job 18 years, that once went 3 straight years without a playoff appearance, and Baltimore stuck with him. I wouldn't say this is knee-jerk or an embodiment of sports culture in a negative way, a lack of patience by canning Harbaugh. You could still think it's the wrong move, but I don't think it's for a patience or some sort of knee-jerk reaction decision.
Well, yeah, I mean, been there long enough at this point that, and as I always like to say, there's a first day and there's a beginning and an end to everything, so.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on the Tomlin interview with Eisen? Those were kind of the big things.
No, I suppose that's the last we'll hear out of him in a national media setting until probably the draft, right?
Well, the owners' meetings. So he'll be there for the owners' meetings. But and obviously he'll have his not State of the Union, but his season end press conference after the Steelers season concludes, which is, not national, but it's kind of he'll get asked all the big questions about the offseason.
All right. What else? Where do we go from here?
And maybe a McAfee appearance too. You never know when he might pop up on there. I think we have covered it pretty good, Dave. So before we make our wild card picks, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie.
All right. Let's see. Everybody's betting. The NFL is in full do or die mode at this point. Obviously, with the playoffs getting underway, college football is down to the last few teams. We're getting ready for Oregon versus Indiana tonight. That should be exciting. And the Super Bowl is now just around the corner as well. If there was ever a time to get in the game, it's right now. And MyBookie makes it stupid easy to play. One account, one wallet, bet the spread, live bet the second half, hit the casino during commercials. It's all in one place at MyBookie, and you've got the power to do so. Go to mybookie.ag now. Use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's promo code TERRIBLE at sign up and get your first bet covered up to $500. If that doesn't hit, just use your bet back bonus token and run it back again. Don't just watch the playoffs, make them pay for you. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only at MyBookie. And obviously you get to that by going to mybookie.ag. And once again, make sure to use our promo code TERRIBLE for the bet back bonus program that they've going for new customers here. So with that, let's get into the games, and we'll be picking all of these except for the Monday night game, because we will have that prediction of Steelers and Texans during our Monday show. And we'll start off with the Los Angeles Rams on the road against the Carolina Panthers. The Rams are 10.5-point road favorites against the Panthers,
despite losing to them in the regular season matchup. But I'll take the Rams this time around.
All right, you like them to cover that 10.5, huh? That big line.
I normally don't, but I'll say yes here.
I'm with you. I think they blow them out of the water in this one here. So I will take the Rams late at 10.5. And what should be a very entertaining game, the Green Bay Packers on the road against the Chicago Bears. Green Bay, 1-point road favorites in this one.
Oof. Basically a pick 'em. Yeah, this one is tough, Dave. Give me Chicago.
I will take Green Bay. I think they win it by a field goal late here. So I will take that 1 point, or I will lay that 1 point on the road and take Green Bay. Go different from you. Another one should be entertaining, a very close line. The Buffalo Bills go on the road to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. Buffalo laying 1 point on the road. So far with the first 3 games here, the road team is the favorite.
Yeah, it's tough to bet against Josh Allen, but that roster has not been as strong, and Jacksonville's really playing great football. Trevor Lawrence is not getting the credit that he probably deserves right now for how good he's playing. I'm gonna go Jacksonville, Dave.
I'm going to go Buffalo. One of the players said expect Josh Allen to have the Superman cape in this game. I believe it. I will take Josh Allen in this one. I will lay the 1 point. So we're going a little bit different here with each other. The 49ers on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles at home laying 5 points at home against the 49ers.
I picked the Niners to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year, so I will stick with that and take the Niners.
I think Philadelphia wins this. Can can the 49ers cover? I think I'm going to go with, I think Philadelphia wins this, but I think San Francisco keeps it close enough and covers. So I'll go with the +5 there. And then the late Sunday night game has the Chargers on the road against the New England Patriots. The Patriots are laying 3.5 points at home against the Chargers. What say you?
I'll take the Pats. That's the one I feel most confident about this weekend.
You know what? I think the Chargers can at least make this a field goal game. I would not be shocked the Chargers upset them in Foxborough. So give me the 3.5 points in this one. And looking ahead, even though we're not picking it right now, the Houston Texans remain 3-point road favorites over the Steelers on Monday night. And we'll be talking a lot more about that game on Monday afternoon.
Dave, before we get to our reader emails, I'm going to surprise you here. I got a couple questions for Dave Bryan. I've been thinking about these. I want to get Dave Bryan's take about some not Steelers-related questions, just some NFL wildcard playoff questions. Is that cool?
Sure.
All right. Which quarterback is under the most pressure this postseason? Of the quarterbacks who are playing, which quarterback is under the most pressure to succeed?
Oh, that is a good question. Let me go back.
Rich Eisen thinks it's Aaron Rodgers. They had this conversation.
In fact, I think it's a lot less pressure on Aaron Rodgers. It sort of almost feels like playing with house money. I know he was sort of asked a question along those lines. Aaron Rodgers would probably be way down the list as far as my answers go here. I would say Josh Allen.
I'm with you. I think it's a no-brainer answer. I think there's no quarterback under more pressure, and I can't think of a quarterback that was facing more pressure in the postseason more than Josh Allen in recent years. I mean, the field is clear. There's no Mahomes, no Lamar, no Burrow. The Chiefs have always been kind of the obstacle, the hump they couldn't get over, and now they're not a factor. And I know the Bills roster has its own flaws, but if they can't win it this year, they can't go to the Super Bowl. The question will be, can Allen win the big game? Can the Bills get over the hump? Are they just a good team, but not a great team? What is the legacy? And some of that may be unfair to Josh Allen because he'll probably play well and he can only do so much, but I think it's unequivocally Josh Allen.
Look, this is a team that a lot of people had expectations that this was going to be the year that they get the Super Bowl, right? So, and here they are. And as you stated, no Mahomes, no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow. The path does seem pretty clear. So I think unequivocally he's under the most pressure here.
Should the Browns hire Mike McDaniel as their next head coach?
I hope they do, but they should not. No. Plain and simple. I think
Why should they not?
He's a brilliant guy, but I just don't. I don't view him as a solid guy that, especially a franchise that has had all the issues that they have had. No, they should not. I think he's a good coordinator. I don't think he's great head coach material, and I hope they do because I think it would be interesting. But no, I don't think they should. If I'm in that look, I would have cleaned house. I don't know even why Sasha's still there, to be honest with you. But
Who?
I don't know. I mean, who's their general man?
Barry? Andrew Barry?
Yeah, Barry. I thought they should have cleaned house with him.
I think a
Uh,
great draft class saved them. Now, to be fair to McDaniel, the Dolphins didn't quit on him when they
right,
easily could have just thrown him the towel. They fought hard and they won some
sure.
games down the stretch. And I think that does speak to something. He's doing something right in that locker room to keep that group together, especially in South Beach.
Yeah, but I don't view him as prime head coach material, especially for an organization that has had the problems year in, year out like they have. No, I don't. What do you think? Do you think they should?
I don't, because I think to your point, although it may be unfair to McDaniel, that personality, does that fit well in Cleveland? Is that going to be well received in Cleveland? I don't think it's a great fit. Also, and maybe I'm making too much out of this. I know each season is different, rosters are different. McDaniel went 0-4 against the AFC North this year and got blown out by all four teams, including Cleveland, 31-6. Baltimore and Lamar's return. Pittsburgh effectively blew him out. Miami had a couple garbage touchdowns late, and Cincinnati won by 20-plus points. And so how do you hire that guy that got boat raced by the AFC North to go win 6 games in division each year?
All right, there you go.
That's my viewpoint. All right, Dave, next question. This will be an interesting one. Will a head coach be fired after Wild Card Weekend?
Let me look here.
Your head coaches. Now, that could also mean for teams that aren't playing in Wild Card Weekend, if somebody wanted to make a crazy push for Harbaugh, for example, but your
No,
head
my answer's no.
So Matt LaFleur would not get fired if he loses to the Bears.
No,
And Sean McDermott would not get fired if he loses to Jacksonville.
no.
Even though Josh Allen, we agree, is under the most pressure and a wild card exit in a year where Buffalo, in theory, should be Super Bowl favorites, would be immensely disappointing.
It would be.
And of course, I assume that'll mean if Mike Tomlin loses on Wild Card Weekend, you believe he would not be fired by Art Rooney.
Correct.
All right. Will a kicker
What's your answer?
I really don't know. I'm going to say yes just to be different, not for Tomlin, but someone will get upset, and that'll make an owner upset, and somebody gets canned. And maybe it's another team that's not even in Wild Card Weekend that somehow makes a vacancy to go after one of the head coaches.
I thought you were talking about playoff. Look, I think if you're out of the playoffs at this point, especially now that Harbaugh's come on us, I mean, would if there was going to be a team to do it, it'd probably be like the Jets or something, right?
Right. I mean, it's less likely to be so late in the process, so it's more about a team that's playing in Wild Card Weekend, but I left it open-ended for either or.
Okay, I'll still say no, but I thought you were mostly asking about playoff teams.
I'll say yes. Will a kicker hit from 60-plus yards during the first round of the postseason?
60 or more?
60 or more.
Let's see, playing in Carolina, playing in Chicago. Jacksonville's always a possibility there with Cam Little.
Yeah, Cam Little's getting pretty good at it's almost 70.
That New England kicker's pretty good, but that's going to be a...
He had a long kick, yeah. Borregales.
I'm going to say no.
Ooh, I'll say yes. I think teams have to get desperate. Someone's going to try a game-time kick or and a half thing. I think someone does it. It might be Cam Little.
All right.
You kind of had already answered this, but this is straight up and less so spread. Excluding Monday night, so not counting the Steelers game because we don't want to give away any predictions. Also, quick sidebar. Do you know who you're picking for Monday, or have you not settled on? You do. Okay, don't answer it, obviously. I'm not sure which way I'm going. I've kind of started a flip-flop. I won't tell you which way, but excluding Monday night, so not for the Steelers-Texans game, how many road teams will win this weekend? You got the Rams, the Packers, the Bills, the Niners, and the Chargers.
2, 3.
What do you think?
3.
Okay, do you have who those 3 are?
Rams, Packers, Bills.
Okay, and the Niners and Chargers.
I think
you said Chargers within a field goal.
Right.
They could cover.
Right.
Okay. All right, my last question for you, Dave. excluding again Monday night, obviously, which game are you just looking forward to watching the most this weekend?
Packers Bears.
Any reason?
Just Love versus Caleb's such an intriguing thing, and you got two really good I think schematic offensive coaches involved in this, and just Packers versus Bears history and
Mhm.
everything that goes along with that. So my mind immediately goes to Packers Bears. I think the second most intriguing one to me is 49ers Eagles, I think.
I was gonna say Packers, Bears, but I also think Bills, Jaguars, because again, the Josh Allen angle, two really good, maybe two of the best quarterbacks in the postseason right now. I mean, you got Drake May, you got Stafford, but Allen and the way that Lawrence is playing right now, really phenomenal stuff. Kind of the Jaguars on the rise, first year head coach, McDermott almost year 10. I think that one's really interesting.
All right.
All right, that's what I got for you, Dave. So thanks for playing.
All right, who wins tonight? Indiana or Oregon?
Give me Indiana.
Give me Indiana as well too. I'm rooting for that.
Yeah, for
All
sure.
right, all right. Shall we get a couple emails real quick?
Yeah, let's do that and close out today's show.
Let's start with let's go down the list here. Jeff, the Steelers aren't really known for their outside rush this year. What I mean is the national media doesn't even talk about it as being a big threat this Monday, even though we have Highsmith, TJ, Herbig, and Sawyer. They talk more about the defensive line. Statistically, I believe we're ranked 6th in sacks, yet the national media only talks about Will Anderson and Hunter on the Texans when it comes to the pass rush. They don't really even mention our guys being a factor. So Jeff says his question is, what do you think of our pass rush, and do you think they will take over the game against the Texans offensive line Monday night? Look, I'm still going through the tape and all like that. I don't know if it's that the national media is not viewing the pass rush in Pittsburgh as being a huge threat. I mean, look, I mean, anytime you got TJ Watt involved in this thing, you got to talk about that. Obviously, they might be overshadowed with what the ends and Texans are doing, but his question is, do you think the Steelers will take over the game against the Texans offensive line? I don't know if they'll so much take over the game as much as I'm expecting them to make impactful plays.
Yeah, I'm still kind of digesting my thoughts. I think takeover is a pretty high bar. I don't know if I would exactly expect that, but I talked about how well Pittsburgh's blitzes are working these last two games. They've really had a lot of success off their blitzes, and so I hope and would like to think that you can get some well-timed rushes to really get home in this game. I mean, I think Watson certainly gets his flowers, and the analytics guys all love Nick Herbig as they should. I think when you don't have that double-digit sack guy this year, then that's kind of the issue. You have Anderson and Hunter. They're both 12-plus sack guys. I think Hunter has 15 this year, so that gets them talked about. It's not like the national media talks a ton about Houston, so I don't feel like Pittsburgh's being disrespected. But, yeah, I mean, you would expect your edge rushers to step up and make plays because you always expect your edge rushers to step up and make plays in Pittsburgh.
Uh-huh. Rob Jones writes in, I like Dave's premonition of the Steelers trading up in round one for a wide receiver. How about coupling that with trading back into the end of the first round for Carson Beck? They have a national champion in Will Howard, who, in my opinion, is better than the rest of the upcoming class, besides Mendoza, Moore, and Beck, and 12 picks. Now, that would be a memorable draft in Pittsburgh, Rob writes. I'm not as high, obviously, on Carson Beck as I am Mendoza and Moore. I don't know where you're at on Beck. I don't view him as a first round guy for sure.
It was a great game last night, but no, and I'm not studied him in depth, but I don't really have any confidence he's going to be a great NFL quarterback, so I'm very likely to be out on Carson Beck.
Especially trading back into the first round to get him. I'm not there. I'm not there. I mean, yeah, I'm look, we got to study all these guys more going into, but my initial, and I've seen 5 Miami games, I guess, or so this year, and obviously the one last night. I'm not in Beck being a first-round guy, and probably not even a second-round guy, to be honest, if we're being honest here.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys, the name we're all going to be talking about in April, the will they, won't they, should they, shouldn't they, is going to be Alabama's Ty Simpson. That's going to be your mid-first round guy because Mendoza and Dante Moore, should he declare, which he likely will, are going to be well gone. Top two quarterbacks taken very early. No one else really seems to be in the mix. We'll see. I mean, a year ago, no one was really talking about Tyler Shuck, and even Jackson Dart was not getting a ton of love. And so, we'll see how the draft process unfolds, but it's going to be Ty Simpson. I'm telling you guys.
All right. Nathan Casey writes in, isn't Peyton Wilson's big problem on the Steelers is he is a MAC linebacker just like Patrick Queen. Neither he nor Queen can be the buck linebacker. So since Queen makes nearly $14 million, Wilson is the odd man out. Queen being on the team is definitely stunting Wilson's growth, he says. I think they hoped one of them could fill the buck role, but it just never materialized. Combine that with the fact that Queen isn't the best green dot would lead me to move on from him next year. You can't pay everybody on D, Benton, JPJ, Herbig, Pierre without having some low-cost contributors. Do you all agree we need to give the keys to Wilson? And was Patrick Queen on the list of Nick Cortez, two guys that he could, based on production versus salary, that could be at least in their top 100 list of guys that could be cut?
Yes, it was him and Malik Harrison, the other inside linebacker who's playing over Peyton Wilson in base run packages right now.
Here's the thing. The Steelers do, it's all about what they're asked to do. This isn't 2005 or 8, where you got the guys up front two gapping to keep clean, and my view on it is with Queen, he's not killing you salary wise. And Peyton, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, has Peyton Wilson necessarily made the jump that we thought he would make this year?
No, I thought there'd be a bigger jump. Pittsburgh clearly doesn't trust his run defense. That's why Harrison's coming in to play in those moments. I think Mack and Buck are pretty antiquated terms.
Yeah.
It's pretty chestless, not chestless, positionless in terms of linebacker play. But I get the overall principle that they need a really good run down guy, and
either of Vince Williams. No. But can you win without that type? Yes.
I mean, just the broader point. I don't blame Queen for Wilson not developing. I mean, if Wilson was better against the run, then he'd be out there, more if he was better in coverage. If he, this is not Patrick Queen's fault. I get the angle in which the question's being posed, but I'm not going to put that on Queen's feet. Also, he's a more veteran guy. He's wearing the green dot. He's communicating. You're going to trust him more than you're going to trust the second-year guy in Peyton Wilson. But if Pittsburgh is that concerned, where they just feel like they can play Wilson on rundowns, so right now they don't, what does that say about his future?
How plausible is it that Queen gets cut as we sit here right now today?
I'd be pretty surprised. I know it's been a roller coaster year, and it's fair to say that Queen maybe hasn't lived up to the high expectations whenever Pittsburgh made him the highest paid outside free agent in franchise history, but I'm not expecting him to be cut. The one name that should have been on that list of Cortez that wasn't was Jonnu Smith. That's a cap casualty that I certainly see. I don't think Malik Harrison gets cut, even though he was on Cortez's list, because what are you really saving by cutting Malik Harrison? And I think Queen stays.
What do you have left over if you were to cut Queen? What's left in that room?
I mean, there are some pieces. You have Wilson, you have Harrison, Hulk. I see under contract. I forget. They've redone his contract in so many different ways. I keep losing track of kind of where it's at. Carson Bruner, but you'd be looking to act, obviously, if you did cut Patrick Queen.
Holcomb's an unrestricted free agent after this year, so if he comes back, it would probably be on a minimum salary.
Mm-hmm. Right. But you'd be looking at, but I think Pittsburgh will basically keep that inside backer room intact.
I agree. All right, let's see if we can maybe get one more. We got to get out of here because All Pro is going to be announced here in a little bit. Let's get to, let's see, we already hit the Jeff one.
I mean, they could move on from Holcomb just to be clear, but I think Queen, Harrison, Wilson are your top guys. Yeah, Bruner obviously all are retained.
All right, let's take one more from Jeff Kinney here. He says, greetings, Dave and Alex. Been scrolling through the site laughing at some of the hot takes and predictions from purported insiders, analysts, and experts, many of which are polar opposite from each other. Predictions regarding draft picks, trades, win-loss records, blowouts, and expected firings are often comical. With all the high-quality advanced analytics available from credible sources and even subjective rankings from folks like PFF, has anyone analyzed the accuracy and track record of these predictions to hold these experts accountable? Most of them would have very short careers as stockbrokers, he says. Yeah, look, I mean, here's the thing. To be on the national level, the everyday guys like, let's say, Dan Orlovsky, Ryan Clark, Colin Coward. Some of these guys are just they're the Stephen A. Smiths. They're not guys that go well deep into this. They're surface topical things that make people talk about them and what they said specifically. I think you just have got to draw the line of who you trust on a week by week basis, especially those that have to follow all 32 teams. I know I would not want that job on a weekly basis. Heck, I follow the Steelers, and what is my track record? I'd like to think overall it's fairly good, but I'm wrong on some things as well too. So am I interested in and what do we have to gain by going through and tracking the accuracy and track record of the predictions? It's fun to throw out after the point that a guy like Colin Coward had the Steelers third in the AFC, those kind of things there. But it's even if it's not those that are there now, they're going to be replaced by someone else that doesn't do a good job up below just the surface area, hot take type artist type things. And that's why those guys have job. I mean, why does Stephen A. Smith make the damn money that he makes if you listen to him week in and week out? I guess it's the fact that you listen to him week in and week out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he draws attention because his analysis can be over the top and make a lot of waves. I am not one to throw stones at somebody who has picked the Steelers horribly this year, to the point that people very much want me to pick Houston in this weekend, Monday's game, because that means Pittsburgh will win, because I think I've been wrong for like 6 straight weeks now, which is a remarkable achievement on my end. But, I get your point. Certainly, analysts can give their hot takes, and we reject a lot of that type of stuff. When we track, I'm looking at my post right now, we track the national media preseason predictions. We may revisit some of those after the season, but it's low-hanging fruit. We all get the hot take nature of the world, and we know places like ESPN, some of that is manufactured hot takes where it may not be what somebody actually truly thinks, but for debate or for the clicks or for the attention, somebody may make some bold claim to generate a conversation online and get a reaction and get people to tune in. So I take all those things with a grain of salt, because I know half the time it's theater more so than it is somebody's reality.
Agreed. All right, real quick, your take on the PPG shuttering.
Yeah, it's sad. I feel really bad for all the people there. I think there are some good people that do a good job there. It's certainly a really bad sign for the industry, for newspapers, which is going in the wrong direction. I really feel bad, not to get in the weeds, and I'm not super familiar with the situation either, but there was a long worker strike with a PPG for like 3 years or so, and workers had just won the court case, and I think really in response to that, the Block Communications, who owns the Post-Gazette, decided to shut down instead of abiding by the court ruling in that strike situations. So that seems to be the response. We'll see if somebody buys the paper last second. A lot of who's buying newspapers in 2026. But yeah, I mean, it sucks for those who will lose their jobs. Wish them well. It'll impact us a little bit in terms of having the people to in the locker room and some of the reporting and stuff like that. But yeah, it just you feel bad anytime loses their job.
Yeah, I feel bad for the people. I'm overly surprised that it's come to this for that publication specifically. No, but the writing's been kind of on the wall for this for a while. It feels like, at least to me. And look, I've done this dating back to 2007, 2008, and you could feel, you could foresee down the road that papers were going to have to papers weren't going to be the thing that look. I mean, I grew up in a, I don't think do you remember going out and getting a paper and sorting through the sports page? I mean, I grew up, that's what I did. That's what I lived for, was going out and getting a morning
Hmm.
paper every morning and all. But guys your age and younger don't even know what that's like. I mean, how many times have you put a quarter in a paper machine and bought a paper?
Yeah, I was kind of on that edge between, paper and internet, so I didn't have that experience the way that you did. But I mean, I'm sure I remember thumbing through newspapers as a kid. I think growing up Sunday paper, especially. But yeah, obviously it's a big change.
And when I got into my 20s and 30s, the big thing for me every morning on the way to the office or whatever was to pick up USA Today. You know,
Mm,
that was the paper, being that I lived outside of Pittsburgh, uh, in small market towns like Pensacola and Savannah and all like that. Once again, once I got into my 20s and 30s, especially big fantasy football guy throughout that time as well too. I wanted a good idea of what's going on around the league. So I did. I mean, yeah, I man, if I had the money back I spent on USA Today, quarter, 50 cents at a time in either a convenience store or out of a machine, I mean, I'd probably be okay. But I miss that aspect of it, of thumbing through the USA Today and reading everything football and baseball related in that. So, but I'm not shocked of what has happened here with the PPG. I'll leave it at that.
yeah, it's in talk about institutions. It's been around since the 1700s in Pittsburgh. So hopefully there can be a last second change that someone else comes in and buys it, but we'll see.
I think, as Mike Florio, I think, was asked about it on 93.7, or you're going to see these teams make. I would think, and I think you're already seeing this around the league. The Steelers aside, I think they're putting more into their own media in house,
Hmm.
and that's why it irritates me to this point that we don't get live, or at least immediately afterwards, the videos of the coordinators and all like that. I think what you'll see moving forward is teams develop their own media properties even more within house. Now, look, the Steelers have their own podcast and along those lines there. But I think even the Steelers could lean in a little bit more into their own house thing. You look around the league and you see how these other teams do it and all, and I think that's, at least when it comes to NFL stuff, I think you're going to see that become even more prominent.
Yeah, I think you're right. You really have some big media productions going on. I watch, the Jets, for example. I've seen some of their stuff and a bunch of other teams too. And Pittsburgh, probably not to that degree. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's hard for me to kind of zoom out and think about the future of the media landscape. You and I get so focused on the day to day, and some of that's good and some of that's bad. But we'll keep doing our thing. That's all I can tell you guys.
Right, and we still are, doing what we do. We're highly profitable. Our traffic's been fine, so this isn't going to impact us any overall. But yeah, it's a sad day for those people in particular that work for the paper.
All right, Dave. Anything else, Nemo Machine?
No, I think we got it. We got about, I think, 10 minutes until all pros come out. So let's get out of here. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, Steelers Depot. We're probably going to be going up on that during the off season as well too. I just want to give people heads up on that. So now's the perfect time to get an ad-free membership before any type of price increase of that goes up here. So go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button, follow the directions that way, and for get a year's membership on that by following the directions, get a username and password that way. So until Monday, enjoy all the football that's coming your way this weekend. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.